Some say his wife was taken off by a Polish nobleman. Some say his kid was killed by them. Here it is a whole story in the Yevei Metsula where, he was always plotting against the Poles, and some Jew told a Polish guy that he's out to get you, and they locked him up with some other Jew who was a friend of his. Yehudi Echad, Be'er Shmo Yaakov Sobolenki, Hoya Ovo Shel Chmelnitsky, V'noslo Eitzah. He gave him advice when he was locked up to have the other nobles give their word, the other Cossack leaders give their word to let him out to go to church on Sunday or something like that, and then he skedaddled, you see? And so you see already beforehand that some clever people saw that he's a real danger. Nevertheless, they were not able to do what they should have done, which was shoot him in the head up front. And therefore, he got out and he got away from them, and he was able to go back. Let's take a look at the map again real quickly. He was able to flee from his jail where the local Polish nobleman had locked him up here, all the way out here to the edges of this area where it was really lawless. The Cossacks were running around, and he said, gather to me and I'll explain to you why you're being persecuted and how we can do something about it. And he was charismatic enough to organize them, and he did do so. And his tactic was very simple. Throughout history, this was the Christian part, this was the Muslim part, these guys are fighting them, and those guys are fighting these. That's who it was. The Cossacks forever had been the heroes of the Christians fighting against the Muslims. Right? That's who they were. He said, why should we do that? Why don't we hook up with these guys against the Poles? That's all. Right? Why should we keep fighting them for the Poles? Let's hook up with these guys for the Poles. Let's make an alliance with them. We'll make a big raid into Poland. And more or less, you guys keep the metaltlin and we get the karka. That's the deal they made. Anything that's movable, gold, silver, slaves, things like that, you guys get to keep. And the land we will keep. It's a very simple kind of deal. He made this offer to the Cossack, to the Khan of the Crimea, the Muslim ruler of the Tatars, this Islamic area. Made very basic sense, and so they hooked up, and then was all the trouble. Then was all the trouble. So the war that we're talking about is a combination of one Christian group plus a Muslim group against a Catholic group. That's what it is, and that gave them a lot of extra power. And it was and both sides are savage because they're the ones that have been doing most of the fighting for a long, long time. Now, to show you how volatile the situation is, without going into too many details, one of the reasons this broke out was because these guys were all planning to join with the Poles in a big raid into here, and everybody was thinking of getting their loot and their booty and things like this. At the last minute, the King of Poland called it off, which meant these guys were all dressed up with nowhere to go. They gathered all their weapons and things like this, and they had big plans, and then it was called off. So they were all in an angry mood anyway, which he was able to exploit. So look at this nutty situation I'm describing. They're all getting ready to join in one big Christian thing against the Muslims. Then it was called off, so the Christian group hooks up with the Muslim group to attack the other Christian group. All this would be funny to us if not for the Jewish side of things. Right? So what happens is that around Hanukkah, he says over here, and this is written, when I'm reading it in Hebrew, is an eyewitness account written by Nathan Hanover, who, as I mentioned last week, Hascholas Mirdam Hoylefnei Purim, that the whole thing started around Purim time, which means you're talking about February, March of 1648. That's when he started to agitate, but it doesn't reach its fullness. Little by little, he's gathering people until around just before Shavuos, in May of 1648. And what happens is you have a terrible May and June, and that's what I'm going to have time to talk about today. And next time I hope to do the rest. The Poles immediately gathered their local forces to attack him, and he defeated them at the battle at Zhovtivody, which is someplace in the Ukraine, in May 16th of 1648. That's the 24th of Iyar, meaning it's just before Shavuos. Is that correct? 2 weeks before. I want you to keep a track of this. So they had their first encounter. The Cossacks won, and that was unusual because the Poles had a professional army, or at least they thought they did, and they got taken down badly. And then, to make things worse, 4 days later, after this defeat, back here in Warsaw, the king died. And they didn't get another king till November. So for the next 6 months, Poland is officially without a king. They had a regent, but there was no king, because remember, they had to elect one. This was the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, the Republic of Nobles, where they didn't want a dynasty. Every time a king dies, they all got to get together. And if you think the elections here in Baltimore for the rabbis are complicated, you ain't seen nothing yet. the Polish system was very complex, and money changed hands and things of this nature. I know you're all shocked. And so it wasn't until 6 months till they got a new king. So it's the worst possible time for it to happen, right? Just when the rebellion broke, and just when they defeated the First Army, the Poles were without a head, which meant that all the nobles and the magnates in this area over here were left on their own, which is a very significant part of our story. 6 days later, when Erev Shavuos, came the great Battle of Korsun. Do we have that on here? There's the king who just died, and there's the new guy who comes in November. So he was a warrior, but he didn't, as you can see by the fact he's wearing armor. But he's not even the king until 6 months after it started. And he was a priest, and he had to marry his brother's wife, and it was a whole ganze shit till he got his act together, until he could organize an army. Took another couple months. It was really, really tough. The Poles were Polacks on this occasion. Well, it was true. Go on. That's it. Okay, I was going to show you. He has over there, on Erev Shavuos, the Poles took a big defeat. They led this big army, led by their two big princes, Prince Koniec Polski and Potocki. These are big names over there. And they just walked into a trap, and they got, the Poles had the famous cavalry, which they had the best cavalry, heavy cavalry, and the hussars, they used to call them. And the only thing is, Khmelnytsky was no dummy. He maneuvered them that they should charge in an area where there was a lot of mud, and it didn't work. And then they fell down in puddles and holes that the Cossacks had done for them, and they destroyed the Polish army over there. So this was even worse. When this happened, then it's real trouble for the Jews, because when this battle took place around over here in Korsun in the Ukraine, and here where I'm pointing right now with my finger is the big river that separates the Ukraine on the one hand from the rest of Poland, the Dnieper River. And so anybody who was on this side of the Dnieper, there's no Polish army anymore. There's no law and order. It's totally under the Cossacks. And they're coming everywhere, and they're going to out for blood, and they're going to kill every Pole and every Jew that they find. If they're not going to kill them, they're going to kill them. And then what do you do? And so as I said before, this happened on Erev Shavuos. It didn't take long for word to get out that the Polish army had a tremendous mapala. All the Jewish communities and the Polish in the area, 30, 40, 50 miles around, whatever, immediately heard the news. And this hit on Shavuos, and as you'll see over here, he has an eyewitness description over here, better than anything that I can do, where he says that HaYehudim shemitzad hanar Dnieper, all the Jews on the wrong side of the river. Shamu elu shnei maros b'yom rishon shel Chag HaShavuos. The news of the two defeats of the Polish army arrived on Shavuos. Just imagine this. One morning, so everybody stayed up all night, right? But you can't go to sleep in the morning. And they said the Cossacks are coming. They're a few miles away. Just get up and run. There were no cars. Get on a horse. Do whatever you can. Get the heck out of there. But it was Yontif, but it doesn't matter. It's really Pikuach Nefesh. And they forgot all their gold and silver, all their wealth. And they literally flee to save. Like, where do you flee to? You can't. Most of them are not in a position to run away and cross the river and get to the other side. Some did, but you run to what's closest. After all, I'm talking about walking. They didn't have cars. Some people may have horses. You have a family. You have kids. You have parents. You have young, old, middle. You can't just tell everybody, get up and run. You understand what I'm saying? Think about what I'm talking about. How do you do that? And the Cossacks are coming and they have horses and who knows what. They're light cavalry. And so the Jews run wherever they can, usually to fortified places. The Poles had castles and forts all over the place, and one would think that these would be safer. Called Glilas Kak Otstra Vakilas Hashayachas Lahem. All the communities in the district of Ostra, which was one of these big communities over there in that area, and he lists off all their names: Chudnov and Lubertov and Stelov, and all the Baruch Tzas Lepolnoa. Some of them ran to Rabbi Oberstein's town, to Polnoa, which had a fortress, Zaslav, and to the fortress in Zaslav, and some to Constantine, Kihem Hoyu, Makomas Chazokis Gedolas. These were big fortified places. V'chol Glilas Kak Lvov, Medinas Russia, and all these areas that near Lvov, the famous Lemberg, ran away to Nemirov. That was a mistake. Nemirov was a big fortress also. Baruch Lekak Nemirov, Usviv's Kak Tulchin, Baruch Lekak Tulchin. These are names we're going to be coming across tonight. Nemirov and Tulchin. I know they're not household names in Baltimore, but they were big names over there. And these are powerful fortified cities. and he has other places as well. Those are the lucky ones. Those are the ones who got away. The ones that didn't get away were in the wrong place at the wrong time. Whoever didn't flee or wasn't able to. I mean, in the situation I'm describing, where does an old person go? The old person says like this, you go, I can't go. I'm going to hold you back. Right? Meaning, there's 1,000 tragedies that cannot be spelled out, that have to be compressed into a sentence, that you just have to realize on your own. Right? And whoever didn't flee, Damo Barosho, their blood was on their head. In other words, whatever happened to them was their own fault. And all these communities on the wrong side of the river of Dnieper, we were close to the battle. Kagan Kak Preslav and Barishkova and Pratin and Barshabali and all these, Luba and Lachovitz, all these names. Nergu al Kiddush Hashem, they were all wiped out on Kiddush Hashem. And Bemisus Meshunas Kashus Umars, with all kind of horrible deaths. They weren't just killed, they were killed. Kitsasam Pashtu, these are the Cossacks and the Tatars, who were among the most savage fighters in the world. Kitsasam Pashtu Orame Aleim, Vabasa Ishlichu Leklavim. Some of the victims, they ripped off their skin and threw the skin to the dogs to eat while you watch. Kitsasam Kitzatsu Yedaim Ragleim, Vishlichum Aladerech. And some of the Jews, they chopped off their hands and their legs, and they threw the rest of their body onto the road. For Avraleim Bekronos, Drachim Besusim, and they rode over them in wagons and horses in order to crush them to death. And some of them were even more exquisite tortures. They inflicted all kind of wounds on them, but they're expert. These guys know the human body very well in a savage way. So they gave them all kind of wounds, slow death. Enough to kill you, but slowly. Now we'll see the Poles did the same thing to them. So they wounded them mortally, but it'll take a long time. And then they threw them out, in order that they should not die quickly. And they should slowly expire while their blood, whatever. They buried many people alive. They shechted children while the mothers were holding them. They took a lot of kids and tore them to bits like you do fish. All these pregnant women, they tore their stomach open. And they took out the babies and smashed them in front of the children. The Nazis, by the way, did the same thing, or to be more exact, the Ukrainians did the same thing in 1941 and 1942, if you take the trouble to look up the facts of the Holocaust. We have pictures of it if you go to the the museum. And some of them, they did things that's mind-boggling. They tore the belly open. They put in the women. They put in a live cat. They sewed it back up. But tougher bed, and the kids were chopped off their hands. So they shouldn't be able to do anything and die this way. These are sick dogs. That's who they were. V'talu hayalodim b'dadei mosam. They hung their babies on the mother's breast. And they hung them both together. And they hanged them. And they took children and roasted them on fire like a barbecue. They and brought them to the mothers to eat them. Or they took kids, or Jewish kids, and they made them bridges, pile one over the other, and turned them into human bridges to ride over them. In other words, you can't think of anything they didn't think of. Hitler didn't need to learn any tricks. This is all out there back in the 1600s. Now let me tell you something. This was standard for us, deservedly so. We're shocked. I'm sure we all are. This was standard procedure in these wars they had all the time. You understand? When you have a civilization and culture where for hundreds of years, A attacks B and raids them, and B attacks A, and there's no quarter shown, and everybody comes up with new ways, you have savagery and savagery and savagery, and they're drunk, and they're lowlifes, and they're this and that and the other. So this is the fate of those who did not escape. There was nothing they didn't try. And everything that they talk about in the Gemara, skila, streif, herg, v'chenek, stoning, burning, and all these things, they came up with. Many, the Tatars captured, and we'll see they were, so to speak, the lucky ones. Why were they the lucky ones? The Tatars, who were more savage than the Cossacks, had a different attitude. They were here strictly for business. When they captured anybody, it's a business proposition. Now, if probably it's an old person, old lady, something, you probably killed him. for fun, because you're not going to get any money out of them. But maybe not. No, we have records of this. But anybody who's not old, or who can persuade them that they have relatives or something like that, or that there's some Jewish community somewhere, which there was, let's say in the Muslim area or in the Turkish Empire, there were Jewish communities, so you'll get pidyon and shvuya money, then they won't kill you. It's just strictly business. If it's fun, it's fun. If it's business, it's business. This was the deal, that whoever the Tatars capture, they get to keep as slaves for money. Later on, a couple years later, there was a big battle between the Cossacks on the one hand, another battle, and the Poles on that one. And the Tatars captured 8,000 Polish prisoners, and the Cossacks wanted to kill them. And the Tatars said, "Sure, but pay us." And they did. And then they killed him. So this is the system of honor that you're dealing with over here. There were unbelievable number of rapes, of married women, unmarried women. They did in front of their husbands. No, this is a degradation thing. And all the beautiful young women were taken to be slaves, shivchos, ophos, to work in the kitchen, in the kitchen of a Cossack family, of a Tatar family. And a lot of them ended up being, in the harem, concubines, things like that. This is what they did to everywhere that they reached. Okay? All the villages and towns where the Cossacks caught up with anybody, bad news. Not only the Jews, they did the same thing to the Poles, because they hated them too. And so if you were a Pole or a priest or something, that's exactly what they did. They had it especially for the Catholic clergy, who, in other words, they tortured in ways I haven't even described yet, nor do I intend to. And